On this week's episode of Six Stars Only, we're going to be talking about the one thing and how we use its lessons to carve out our time every day for compound results. All right, guys, how's it going? Matt, how are you? How are you doing, man?
Dude, I am feeling toasted. I just did my first CrossFit workout ever,
Oh my
started a new
gosh.
job, but it's okay. I recovered. I laid on the floor for a little bit. I ate some broccoli, and I am ready to talk about this book. This is an amazing book. I'm really pumped about it. But
Yeah,
before we get into it, how are you, Jacob Arndt?
I'm good. I'm exhausted, but since like you did a new job and like you did CrossFit, I feel like less like I deserve to be tired. Or I'm like, I just sat at a desk all day. I didn't really do anything. I sat at a desk and I ate chicken strips like 20 minutes ago. But yeah, I'm good. And
By
yeah,
the way, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah, just I about this book, the one thing. So Matt had you told me about it for a long time, and I was just like, okay, like I heard about it, and I'm just lazy with like when it comes to reading books. Like, okay, like I'll get around to it. Like I'm sure it's good, self help book, blah blah blah. Like I didn't really think way too much about it. And then my mom had the book, and I was like, that's just bizarre. I didn't think you would own that a book. And then
Your
well,
mom
I
just
ordered
had
it
it on the
anyway.
bookshelf?
Yeah, like she had it after I already ordered it. You told me. I was like, okay, thanks for not telling me until I already paid. It was only like $12. Blew me away. Like I honestly did not think that I would enjoy it as much as I did. Totally
So you're
changed my
saying my
perspective
book
about a lot of
recommendations
things.
aren't always terrible.
No, yeah. I was like, Matt, this is a terrible book. No, but yeah, I was just blown away at how much it pretty much just like convicted me, and like each time I was like, oh yeah, this thing that you're doing, it's totally wrong. I was like, oh, like that's I have a lot of things I want to change. But what were you saying earlier before I rudely interrupted you about my?
Oh, well, I was going to just say, in a nutshell, so we want to explain what our show is really
Oh
quick.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Six Stars Only is the weekly show where we talk about how going from wannabe video creators to fearless video creators
Mm.
who learn from role models, create cool videos, and actually follow through. And so this book, The One Thing by Gary Keller, is super powerful because it is probably the one most influential book in my life that has helped me go from these wannabe areas where I've had these high aspirations but no follow through,
Hmm.
and given me a really good plan to build disciplines that get me where I want to go professionally and just in life.
Yeah,
So that's why I'm excited to dig into this. That's why I recommend it to you.
yeah,
And I'm super glad it's been at least a little bit relevant. But can you talk?
yeah.
What were some of the things that you found? I want to dig into this.
So pretty much all of it was really relevant, and I loved it. But we can't talk here for about like 4.5 hours. So just some of the biggest things that stuck out to me was just, and I'll just kind of go through the list because I just made a list for them. But a lot of it, like you said, is just about the one thing, and a lot of it just kind of focusing on the one thing. The titular one thing, and about kind of just like getting rid of all the noise, and just focusing on one thing at a time and doing it very well. Because I think I have such a scatterbrain kind of mind with things. I want to be better. I want to be better at a lot of things. I want to do a lot of different things, which is great. But in my mind, for the longest time, I conflated, when I saw people who were doing a lot of things, that's like, okay, so I need to do that exact thing. I need to try to learn how to make a website. I need to try to also write a book. I need to try to do all these things. But I don't have those habits built up, and we can kind of like explore that, because I mentioned this pretty much every episode, but I was just a reformed, incredibly lazy person, somewhat. I'm trying to get better every day. Of like, okay, I need to be, I need to get work done. Like I need to be more productive. I need to focus better. So that mindset of being like, okay, let me do all these things at once, is awful, because
Yeah.
I can't, and I spread my focus thin. I have a finite amount of energy and amount of effort that I could put into things. So if I do pull things off, like 5 different things at once, it's very mediocre, and it's not worth it. And the biggest takeaway, if I can just boil it down, is instead of like 5 or 6 different things, find one thing that you can do just like this week, or like this day. And it's like, okay, that's a lot easier than because I'm overwhelmed a lot with like, okay, I want to finish my book, I want to write this blog post, I need to put 2 videos on YouTube this week. And for me, at least, like, I don't know, like if this is the same with you, it almost stresses me out. And when I get stressed out and when I feel like I have all this stuff to do, I become even less productive. So
No,
it becomes
100%.
this circle of just suck where I can't get anything done. Then I feel guilty, and it's like, oh, and then it just happens all over again. So I don't know, like if you want to add anything to that,
No,
but that's my
exactly.
biggest
I
takeaway.
think the big thing about this book is that it saves you from what I call the gap. So the gap is like the big scary gap between where you want to be and where you're stuck. And so all this panic and anxiety comes in because you're like, oh, I want to become the best video creator in the world. I want to get 10,000 subscribers. I want to do, all these different things. And then it's like, okay, how do you actually do that? And then you start trying to fill it up with busyness, right? And so in particular, there are these 6 lies that he talks about in the beginning that separate you from success. And so I want to list out a few of those really
Yeah,
quick.
go for it.
But I think this big one hit me really hard. The first lie, you want to hear the lie?
Yeah.
Here's the lie. Everything matters equally. Not true. Because the reality is that most of your results, most of your, if you're trying to grow a following, most of your followers will not come from a bunch of activity. They'll probably come from the minority of your activity. This quote just like really hit me hard, but it's the majority of what you want will come from the minority of what you do. If you've heard of the Pareto principle, it's this idea, that 80% of the results come from 20% of the inputs. And it's so true and so simple, but it's something that you can't lose sight of, because once you start treating everything equally, you're going to lose sight of asking the clarifying question of, okay, what's actually going to produce results here?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's still, and I think that's why I love this book so much. It's because I think it's like people have told me that, like you've told me in the past, and it's like, oh yeah, like I need to kind of focus. But when I guess Gary, like as if I know him personally, old Gare Bear,
old Jerry Bear,
he just put it so concise, and like you just said, of just not everything matters the same. Like it's okay to say no to things that you just aren't like capable of doing, and I feel like
you actually have to say no.
You have to say no, exactly. Like it's not an option, and I'm a very people pleasing person, but just sometimes you're just not capable of taking on other projects or like other things that people want you to do as much as you want to. It's just you have to focus on, no, I want to make a video this week. I can't do X thing, like, and it's just all about focus. I think that's like the biggest thing I'm trying to like work on, and this book kind of showed to me is that I need to focus and have that like singular focus on the one thing. So I guess I'll take it over for like, I guess we can kind of go back and forth of like, oh, there's this one thing I learned. But another thing, and I don't even remember because I didn't put the chapter list. Matt is his notes are a lot more. Mine are just like, I like this, and I just put it on our Trello. But and this is again, is something that I know, but when it's like spoken back to me, or like when I read it myself, it's like, oh yeah, that's true. And it kind of ties in with like what we're talking about. But multitasking is a lie, and I think for the longest time is that pretty much what we're just saying is that I conflate seeing busyness and just assume that, oh, those people are successful, like they're doing a lot of different things, therefore that guy must be successful. I want to be successful, therefore I need to be able to do several different things at once, like 5 or 6 different things that he's doing. So he's working, like do all this stuff.
Because you see just this flurry of activity, and you assume that guy's really productive.
Exactly.
He's always running around, sweating, doing stuff. He's always checking stuff off a list, and he must be doing it right. And
yeah, exactly.
That's what success looks like.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's just not true. Or people, I guess, who have got that have made habits, and that's like something else that like an next point I want to make. But seeing people that are just, okay, they're always somewhere, they're always doing something, I want that, but I didn't understand pretty much what this book is saying of like, okay, when you stretch yourself so thin, and like another thing he mentions in the book about, effort is like it's finite. So, like, I think he mentioned like waking up in the morning and like doing like, or trying to get to your one thing as soon as possible. I'm pretty sure, I can't remember what chapter that is. But it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
like successful people aren't like these superhuman beings that have like, oh, they just have more effort, like they just have this like effort juice that they just stock up, or like they're just on like crack cocaine or whatever all the time. Or maybe I don't know. But it's just they're better at utilizing their focus and their energy on what matters and not
yeah.
spreading it thin amongst stuff that's stupid and worthless. And it's like, oh, I need to start doing that. I need to stop doing busy work that distracts me from what I should be doing, and multitasking. Because, like I said earlier, when I try to do a lot of different things at once, nothing turns out like I wanted. So I just have like 5 or 6 bad to mediocre at best things, and that doesn't like make me better. That doesn't make me better as like a content creator. That doesn't make me better as a person, as an individual. And it's something that I'm like, okay, I need to just cut that out immediately. Like I need to stop trying to seem busy and just focus on, okay, I want to get this thing. I want to get this video done. Like
Well, yeah, and I think there
yeah.
are a couple things packed away in there. One is the idea that, which is very helpful, that your willpower is limited.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lie to think that it's always on call and you just need to sort of pull yourself up by your bootstraps to be able to get stuff done. But the reality is that people who are very productive are disciplined, not willful. Now, the difference between those two is like, let's use like my marathon training for an
Mm-hmm.
example. I was initially not very disciplined in running. I could run for a little bit, a short time, a short distance, but it wasn't the length or the frequency that I needed.
Mm-hmm.
So if I tried to go from, running 1 mile to running 26, your willpower alone cannot. Your body couldn't hold up. But even let's
Mm-hmm.
assume my body could hold up. Your willpower is not enough to just jump you there.
Yeah.
What your willpower is enough to do is to start a habit,
Mm.
preferably one at a time. Really, you gotta have that key habit. Again, coming back to focus, but to use your willpower to kick off the habit. And usually, this one was really helpful for me. It takes about 66 days on average,
Yeah.
I believe, to really solidify a habit so that it becomes a discipline. And when something's a discipline, you don't have to spend a lot of willpower doing it. Think about when you're
Exactly.
like brushing your teeth in the morning. You don't have to be
Mhm.
like, oh, I really have to brush. And with every,
Like, ugh.
brush, most of the time you don't even realize that you're doing it. But that's the power of habit and discipline, that you
Mhm.
can use your willpower to bootstrap a habit, and the discipline of doing that habit day in, day out allows you to get results over time.
It's true.
I think the other thing that's really helpful is realizing, like you mentioned, waking up early in the morning. The other thing that goes along with that is that there is a huge and often hidden cost to multitasking. And he says that multitasking really isn't a thing. It's task switching. Because you're focusing on a thing and then you're switching tasks and then you're switching back, and every time you're going to have to reorient yourself. And the time cost he talks about for switching back and forth, ranges from 25% of the time that you would have spent to 100%. So it can take you up to 50% longer, even twice as long, to do the same task, because you're inserting these distractions that make you use up your limited willpower and distract you from doing your best thing. You're going to have to pick up your train of thought, and you're just not going to be in the same place at all. And so there are a lot of these things stack on each other, and by themselves, yes, they are powerful, but it is when you focus on one thing, eliminate task switching, carve out that time, use your willpower to bootstrap it into discipline, that these things start stacking on each other,
Mm-hmm.
and you start getting into these exponential results.
Yeah.
Which that's when things get exciting. That's one of the light bulb moments is when he started talking about exponential results for me.
Yeah. It was a really good point. Sorry, my laptop was about like 2 seconds from dying, so I had to like, oh crap, like my laptop like the charger was like 1 inch too far away, so I was like, I have to like find another. But that's true, especially about just it being a habit. And successful people almost always, like you said, like it's just a chain of habits. But it's kind of like it's kind of like a far out the store, but it's kind of like seeing success and just assuming that, oh, they've just always been successful. It's like Kevin Hart. I don't know if you've mentioned that, but I think I've told you about it before. But he's one of the biggest stand-up comics in the world, and it seems like he's just kind of been successful for a long time now. Like,
He
oh,
was
he
just
just
an
got to
overnight success, right?
exactly,
That's
yeah.
how everyone.
But
Wait, Jake, are you telling me that Kevin Hart wasn't an overnight success that
no,
just got there by willpower and sheer talent and luck?
no, of course not. I was listening to a podcast, Barry Katz, the industry standard. It's actually is a really good podcast, but he was on there saying that basically he was living like just with his mom, paycheck to paycheck, and basically he would just go to open mics. I think it was in Philly for years and years, and he'd pretty much live off of because they had contests of like whoever the funniest comic wins like 100, $200. He did that for years and years, almost a decade, and he, through talent and hard work, he eventually made his way up to the ranks. But he had, I guess, 2 show deals. He was signed, and he was like, okay, I'm on the fast track now, and he had those pretty much ripped away from him. I think he
Brutal.
told, I guess the podcast host Barry Katz, he was just they were shooting the promos. Like there was like the promo photo shoot of like all like the cast members of I think it was NBC, and like the producer right before Kevin Hart was about to go on stage to get his pictures taken for his new show, and I told him like, Kevin, I'm sorry, I actually have to talk to you. Like your show's not going to happen anymore. And that
Such a
happened to
bad
Kevin
feeling.
Hart twice. So like he
As
had
if
so
once
many
wasn't bad
setbacks.
enough, right?
Yeah, isn't that so? It's harsh. And he said like I felt like quitting just then. Like I felt like, and that was like over like a decade or so ago. But all that to say is that you see people who are successful or like making content or they're just really good at making videos, and it's just like okay, they're just something about them that was like innate. Like they were just naturally good at doing that stuff. Like they're just naturally hard workers. They're just naturally, but that's almost 100% like never not the case. Never not the case. Never the case. Where you said like they one by one they had to build those habits. So now you're seeing the fruits of all like you said, like it's the exponential, like when you said when it gets exciting, like they've made it to where it's exciting and people can see it, but that stuff was built off of just one by one building those habits, which made it easier, and you could just build off each other. So like with this podcast, what is this, the 7th episode? Like we're still trying to trying to find our way, but it's a matter of okay, maybe another 10 episodes. It's like, oh yeah, it's just a habit every week to do this. That way it's not, and it's not to say that, like, I love talking with you, Matt. I'm not saying, like, it's like pulling teeth talking to Matt on this podcast. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just
Well,
like,
thank you. I
okay,
appreciate that.
Matt's, he did CrossFit. He's exhausted. Like, everyone's exhausted. But it's just a matter of, okay, making a habit of, I want to make a video once a week. When you do it enough, it's like, okay, it becomes a habit, and you can build off of that of like, okay, what else can I do? And yeah, so that's one of the big takeaways I got too. Is just I need to worry, I guess, to not worry so much on. I just need to try harder. Like I just need to be more disciplined, which is true, but it's about pointing that
Man, I got a
discipline.
rant coming. Can I give you a little rant?
Yeah, go for it. I was
A little
gonna
rant.
finish
Like
this thought.
this is such like this is an Italian hands moment. I'm like feeling
Get the Italian hands
the
going.
vibes on this one, but yeah, this quote really got me. I think it sums this idea up so well. The quote is, "It's not about how much overtime you put in. The key ingredient is focus time over time. To achieve an extraordinary result, you must choose what matters most and give it all the time it demands." And I think this is exactly what you're talking about, right?
That's true.
Like you can't make up for a comedy show by just having one 36-hour long stand-up session. You have to get up there night after night after night after night, and then after 20 years you become Kevin Hart. And I think that's one of the things. The reason this gets me so fired up is I feel like this is something that is really missing from a lot of popular media that celebrates creators, because everyone likes the overnight story and everyone wants to discount the importance of focus time over time, right? You want to find a hack, and that's why I get so annoyed with like these growth hacks and these other things where it's like, oh, if you just make this right kind of video, this right kind of thing, if you just target this audience, if you just hustle really hard, you can actually beat the system, and you don't have to work overtime. It can happen in 30 days instead of 3 years. But the reality is, I mean, those growth hacks have a cost, and they usually don't work the way you think, and they usually don't truly get you to your result.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look at any of the greats, you're going to see focus time over time. I think it's an inescapable reality if you want to do it right.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Yeah, that's a lot more concise of my rant. We need to make T-shirts of just Italian hands. Like it just has the Italian hand. I don't know if that would be offensive. It probably will be. I'm like 2% Italian,
I hope not.
so I feel like I can.
If it is,
that.
please tell me, and I'll stop saying it. Yeah,
No.
don't mean it.
But every time, yeah, it's true. Every time I just start feeling that something, just the Italian hams like just burst out. But yeah, that's a really good point. I think something else that, I mean, all of it stuck out. But so he mentions the four thieves, which is the inability to say no, which I'm really struggle with. Fear of chaos, which I think that's just like a kind of a human trait.
Wait, what are these things thieving exactly? Fill me in.
I guess your focus. I'm being put on the spot. I didn't even think. I just saw the four thieves and I was like, thieves. But it's just they pretty much just like sidetrack you. And for me, kind of mentioned it earlier, but it's just these things switch my focus, or they like just derail me from like my one thing to where it's like, okay, like the inability to say no, for instance. So I have a focus on I want to make a video this week, but my friend wants me to do, I don't know, help him film or he wants me to join his business where we film inside real estate, inside joke, but something else that just doesn't work, and it's my inability to say no. I'm like, okay, I can help do that, or I can help take you to, or I can help babysit, and that kind of gets into trying to be a good a good sibling and like a good uncle, but I'll deal with that later. But it's just you only have so much time in a day, and you only have so many minutes and hours in a week, and we need to track that from your one thing and like your focus, like what it should be on. There's always like a price to pay, and every yes, like there's a consequence for it. I think that's something to where
And one of the things I heard from a leader that really hit me in the gut hard, because this time management thing, it gets so trite and overplayed a lot of times. But there's one rule that goes along with that. It's kind of the flip side, the antidote to this. And that's whenever you have something that is the benefit of having the one thing, the most important thing. Mm-hmm. And again, you can have multiple one things. There can be a one thing in your relationships, a one thing in your spiritual life, a one thing in your career. So it's not like, oh, your career takes over everything. That's not what we're talking about. But say when you have a one thing in something, like that is your yes. And the thing this leader said this one time is like, when I say yes to something, it automatically dictates what my no's are going to be. Because like once I've said yes to something, I've committed, that time is blocked off, I am spoken for, that is my time, that is my attention, that is my energy. And I can't revoke that once I've committed to it. I'm not going to let other things come in and steal that yes away and dilute it into something that's not going to make the impact I need it to make because other people are depending on me. Mm-hmm. And that hit me hard because I think so often, no one wants to say yes to things that are going to distract them from their goal. Mm-hmm. But it's hard to draw a line in the sand and say, like, I have said yes to this. Like, non-negotiable, I have to say no 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. And I think, especially for me, I don't like saying no just because I'm a people pleaser, like I mentioned earlier. But I think I have to like kind of like self-examine, like, okay, why am I saying yes? And a lot of times it's to just avoid, I guess, uncomfortable situations. Essentially, it comes down to kind of selfishness in a weird way, where it's just like, okay, I'll give like this quick yes. I guess it all comes down to me not valuing the power of a yes and like giving a commitment to where it's like, okay, I don't want you to be bummed out. I don't want you to like feel like you don't have help. So I'm going to say yes just because I want to avoid this uncomfortable situation. But then normally in the end, like I mentioned, I won't like get into huge details, but it caused a huge, I guess, kind of blow up in like my personal life of miscommunication, and it just causes so much problems and it just all kind of arose from my selfishness and like, okay, I'll just tell him yes because I don't have to deal with awkwardness or like him being mad at me or so and so, like blah blah blah, all these things. And that just all comes down to I just don't value enough. I feel like, or like a lot of people, it's just like you said, like your one thing, like that's like the main yes, so that like dictates where like your no should come from. To where, okay, this thing's gonna impede my one thing. It's gonna take time. It's gonna take my focus, my energy away from my one thing. I have to say no to a lot of other things, essentially. And I think he mentioned an example. Like he has a lot of examples, but if Steve Jobs, when Steve Jobs came back to Apple, you might know the history more. But I think Apple's product line was like they had like several hundred, and then when Steve Jobs kind of took over,
Crazy bloated.
he
Yeah.
just slashed it to I was it like a dozen or so. Like he just got rid of. So he like he was, and Gary was saying Steve knew the power of a no. Of like, okay, I'm not going to do that. Here's what we're focusing on. Those are pretty cool. Like those are good ideas, but that's not what we're doing. And look at what happened. Like regardless of what you think, there's like a lot of different opinions on Steve Jobs and everything, but he was successful. Like he grew Apple into like he became like this icon, all because he knew like, okay, we're gonna do this, we're not gonna do that. It's nothing personal. It's just this is what we're doing. Like this is what our business is, and like you need to have that same approach. I need to have that same approach when it comes to like my one thing. I want to make better videos. I want to make a video a week. I want to do this, and this. I can't do those things. And I just need to be more firm and like more steadfast and okay, this is my yes. I value this yes. Therefore, these are the no's for like these yeses that are just kind of like trite and like they're invaluable essentially. Yeah.
Word up.
Word up.
That's good. There's another one that I think out of the four thieves. I don't want to go through all of them, just bullet points style, but there's another one that I think was very helpful and maybe a little outside the box, and that's poor health habits as a
I was going to mention that.
to your focus and meeting your goals. I think this is so good because you can be focusing on your thing. You can be putting in 4 hours a day, writing or creating videos or doing your thing. You can be doing all the right things, but if you're not eating right, if you're not getting in sleep, I think this is the biggest thing that is so dangerous because a lot of people, especially when you're younger or even if you're not younger, but there's this twisted thing in American culture where lack of sleep is almost worn as a badge of honor. Like, oh, I pulled an all-nighter. You're beating your chest. Look at me. I'm truly committed and I'm hustling and I'm going to make it. And honestly, that's just not setting you up for long-term success. It's setting you up for burnout, risk of depression. It's bad for your mental health. It's bad for your health straight up. And the research is out there. You can go read it. It's pretty definitive. And so poor health habits, cut them out now because maybe it won't stop you in the short term, this week, this month, but over the long term, it is going to grind you down and steal your effectiveness.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that all goes back to, I guess, mistaking busyness for success. And that comes with, okay, this person's so busy that they're not eating correctly, or like you mentioned, lack of sleep, and it kind of being a weird, sick badge of honor where like, oh, I work so hard. He's such a hard worker. He, fell asleep on the couch, so and so, all this different stuff. That's awful. And even though our podcast is about video content and like, making videos, so like that's kind of like that one thing. Like you mentioned earlier, you can apply the one thing to several aspects of your life, and I feel like the one thing for like your spiritual life, for like your health, for like your like relationships and your friends, like like it builds off one another. So if one's strong, potentially like it will help. If your personal life, if you're one thing with like
absolutely, yeah,
like your spirituality, I feel like it can only benefit for the most part. Like, oh yeah, my relationship with my wife, my husband, like my friends, and when that's thriving, it helps you thrive energy-wise and like your business or your content creation or whatever. So yeah, like you said, don't neglect your health. It's a super important thing. I'm trying to get. You're making me look bad doing CrossFit. I'm trying to get back into eating healthy, and I think it's just like from like a personal
Hey,
aspect.
you're invited, man.
I'm
Let's go.
25. I gotta start. I gotta start working out and getting my, you know. Thank God I'm less heavy than I was in high school, but it's just a matter of I want to be around for my kids. I want to be around for my nieces. I want to be around to have energy later in life. So yeah, that's like an important thing. I'm really glad like you mentioned that point because it was right like on deck for me. But I want to mention something else. I guess the last thief, and like this is just like a short comment, but he mentions one of the thieves is that your environment doesn't support your goals, and I feel like that's a huge thing for me.
What does that mean to you, though? Why did that hit you so hard?
I think for me, like environment can be work environment, like your home environment, work environment, but I think a lot of it also is just who, like the people you fill yourself around with, and as unfortunate as it is, so I had like a few friends, especially back in high school and middle school, and even like early college years. I loved them to death, but we would feed off of each other. We were very lazy. We would talk a big game, but we never focused. We never got anything done. We would just laze around, chill out, and we never made progress on anything. We had all these dreams, and we just kind of fed into each other. Our environment didn't help. Like we had like we want to write a book, we want to make videos, we want to do all these things, but we never lifted each other up to where we could do that. And now I'm going to brag on you.
Here's what's crazy about that, though. Can I jump in for a little
go
second?
for it.
Because one of the powerful themes of the book is that your habits work like a flywheel, and you get exponential results. So if you don't know, a flywheel is like this device where imagine like a giant spinning wheel, and it starts off slowly, but as it speeds up and goes faster and faster, it builds up energy, and it just starts spinning faster and faster, and the inertia carries it forward. So you don't have to push it as hard over time. It takes on a life of its own, and it keeps going. Your habits are like that when they're done correctly. But here's the messed up thing. That works with good habits, and it compounds and makes them more effective. It also works with negative habits. So if you are in an environment where you really have like self-destructive habits, if you are like believing lies about yourself, like, oh, I'm just too lazy, I'm too busy, I never have enough time, you are going to start talking like that. You are going to believe those lies. Your behavior is going to match. You're going to find ways to fill up your time. You're going to get better at making excuses, and it builds and it picks up speed, and the inertia takes off. And those same things that those habits you should be building to get you to your goal are just going to work in reverse to take you further and further and further away.
That's true. Yeah. And that's also, like you mentioned, that's one of the biggest things where we were very negative and very, I guess, just jaded towards like, okay, maybe we can't do this. And we got better and better at making excuses. And it was just this tar pit that we just like, couldn't escape from. I left college and I met Matt, and that's one of the great things about this podcast is that we're able to talk amongst each other, and like you guys who are listening, the way we can do it in public and kind of hopefully just help each other and like be good examples and get awesome ideas. But Matt came along in my life, and I was like, man, this is a guy that like gets stuff done. He has good habits. I didn't know there were habits at the time. I was like, okay, I want to like hang out with this guy because he's getting stuff done. Like
need better habits.
Exactly, yeah. And this podcast is pretty much an exercise in, okay, how can we be better together? How can we like do this stuff? And it's so much healthier than where I was, not even, I guess, 2-3 years ago, which seems like a lifetime, but simultaneously not that far away. And it kind of made me realize that, okay, I want to be a person that helps people achieve their goals as well. I don't want to be that person that brings them down, and I want to be someone that is like that flywheel to where it just compounds, and together I can help someone dream, I can help them focus on something, I can help do that. And it just helped me, even though I'm still taking baby steps and I'm taking it one day at a time. I have a long way to go, but I look back where I was and just like that, yeah, like that death spiral of just kind of, I don't know, just kind of laziness and unfocus and self-deprecation and all this stuff. And I think, man, like I'm so glad that that's not me anymore. I'm so glad that my mindset has changed to where it doesn't have to be that way. So yeah, and I think just
And one of the great things about starting out now too is, if you don't have that environment, if
mhm,
you don't have that right internship, that right job, you weren't born in the right place, you don't know anyone else who is, you know, like-minded and is going to build you up to
mhm,
where you want to go, you can build that environment, or at least take steps to go in that environment. And it doesn't have to be some grand gesture or some grand plan. One of
yeah,
my favorite parts of this book, and this is going back to one of the lies, but uh, is basically this idea that big is bad. And actually, if you want to get started, you should start as small as possible. And rather than making a big to-do list, you should start with one thing, because you can always narrow
mhm,
your one thing and your next step down to one step, and you can make it small. And
mhm,
you should, because then you can build up momentum and you can start that flywheel. And you can, so whether that is, listening to a podcast about your thing, whether that is putting out one video even though it isn't good,
mhm,
you can boil it down to the one most impactful, smallest thing, and you can take action and just start. And it's going to be hard at first, but it
mhm,
will get easier.
yeah. Well, I mean, even now, as kind of embarrassing as it sounds, where when I feel defeated or feel like I'm kind of in a rut, where you mentioned like, okay, what's one thing I can do today, right? Like just boiling down as like small as possible. The other day, I was exhausted, just like, kind of frustrated with family and like work, and I just didn't feel like I got a lot done that week. So I just thought to myself, okay, what can I do today that will be productive? Because my goal, like, it's kind of like a ethereal thing, but my one thing for that day was I want to be productive, because I wasn't productive for like four. I think it was like a break. I had like 4 straight days of like no work, and I was like, I'm gonna get so much stuff done, blah blah blah, and I got nothing done. I just sat on my butt and I watched like YouTube videos. So I was thinking, okay, how can I build that momentum again? Because I kind of like slipped, and it was just, okay, I'm gonna clean my room. I'm gonna do one thing. Like I've been putting off doing this. I'm gonna stop doing the things I know I shouldn't be doing, and I'm going to start doing the things I know I should be doing. So what do I need to do? Okay, I need to clean my room. Okay, I got that done. Okay, I kind of felt better. All right, what's something else I can do? I'm gonna get a haircut, because I had like a mullety kind of bowl cut monstrosity on my head. I got a haircut because I'm really lazy and I don't want to go get haircuts. I got that done. I was like, okay, like I'm feeling good. Like I'm capable of getting stuff done. Like, okay, what else can I do? I'm gonna outline. I got even bigger. I was like, okay, I'm gonna outline a video for next week, and I got it done. It was just kind of like compounded, as strange as it sounds, and it made me just feel productive, and it made me feel like, okay, yeah, I can do this again. I think progress isn't necessarily always linear. In fact, for the most part, it's not. So I don't want to make you guys who are listening think like, oh yeah, like I'm productive every single day. I'm like, the greatest, like, okay, a few years ago I was awful, and now I just make videos. I'm like this super successful. I'm better than I was, but I'm still a human and I still slip up. But now I just know that, okay, how can I focus? How can I just focus on one small thing at a time, build those habits, and slowly build it up? That way I can get back on track and back on focus for my main kind of big one thing, as opposed to being like, oh, like I'm just kind of this person that will never get anything done, this like defeated kind of like just negative person that I used to be. And that's just not the case. I've grown out of that, thank
Uh,
goodness. So
Kick that out of here.
yeah,
Get it
exactly.
out. Oh, and there is a little trick too that he mentions, kind of offhand, that I think is really helpful to narrowing it down
Hmm.
to that one thing. Because you can say, okay, well, Jake, that sounds great, but I have 7 things and they're all really important,
Hmm.
or maybe 3 things and they're all really important, and they all seem equally important, and it's hard for me to narrow that down. And this is simple, but I think effective, to just ask the question, okay, what is actually the most important here? So if you have 3 different things, it's like, well, I could be making videos, I could be talking to people, I could be making Instagram posts. Okay, what matters most? And if you can just eliminate one, okay, what matters most? And you can eliminate one,
Hmm.
and you can start on that and start small. I it'll compound, it'll get you started, and then you can build the momentum to tackle the big stuff.
Yeah.
But one habit at a time, one thing at a time
Yeah.
is the way to go.
That's good. Yeah. That's the main
Can I talk
takeaway.
about the 4 Ps?
Oh yeah, go for it, please.
Ooh, I love this. Okay. So, had you heard of this idea of like starting with like purpose and how things build on that before this book?
I had heard of it, I think, in passing before, but kind of like the book itself, I was like, yeah, that sounds pretty interesting, but I'm gonna like not pay attention because I'm above reading. Apparently, I don't know what my mindset was. I heard of it, but I like never really put too much thought into it, I guess.
So here's the basic idea first is that most people, when they're starting out on something, they jump right to, okay, what can I do? I got to make a checklist. I got to do all these things. I got to be productive. But he uses kind of the example of this iceberg. And if you're going to build a business, you can't start with, just doing a bunch of stuff and making money.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go deeper. And so he says you actually, before you can build up to the things you have to do really well, you have to figure out what the right things are. Well, how do you figure out the right things? You got to start before anything else with your purpose. Because if you don't know why you're doing all this stuff, you're going to go off track or you're going to lose motivation. It's going to be hard to actually stick it through. Because you do still need some element of that willpower to build the habit, and the habit needs to be trending in the right direction for it to truly have an impact.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not enough to just have purpose, because on top of the purpose, you have to have priority. And I think he has this great quote where he talks about purpose without priority is powerless. You can't do anything with it. Because if you know why you're doing this thing, but you don't know what's most important to make that happen, you're just sitting dead in the water. And so finally, once you know why you're doing the thing you're doing, your purpose, you know what's most important to do next, your priority, then you can be productive and do the thing well. So it's like, okay, I know that creating a video every day will help me, help people with this issue. And it is the most important thing to do because it'll help grow my reach, hone my skills, etc. Now I can get really good at creating one video every day. And then the profit off of that, whether that's people, completing the goal that the key action you want them to take, buying from your business, subscribing to your stuff, donating to your charity, whatever that is, that can come because you had your purpose right, you prioritize correctly, and then you're productive and on the right things.
That's so good, man. I should be taking notes, even more notes right now as you're speaking, but God, that's so good. I think we all need to start doing that. Is there anything else? Any big takeaways? I pretty much talked through all of my main takeaways that I can think of. Any other big points you want to tell our listeners?
Just one. I think this quote sums up the book really well and kind of how it's benefited me. But this quote by F.M. Alexander says, "People do not decide their futures. They decide their habits, and their habits decide their futures." I think that's so key. So much of this is not about it's about throwing away this idea that you have to will yourself into doing amazing things, and it's replacing that with sustainable habits that are going to carry you to where you need to go over years and over the long term, rather than going for these short-term band-aids and hacks that are just going to leave you burnt out.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's been helpful to me. I have not arrived or made it by any means, but it has helped reset my mind and help me give me some practical tools, whether it's professionally, personally, or in other areas, to be able to actually close the gap between where I want to be and where I actually will be in 1 year, 3 or 5 years, and beyond.
That's good. Yeah. I think there was a quote where he said, willpower is not always on will call, or something along those lines. And yeah, just willpower is finite. You won't always feel every single day like you can't. Success is not based off of willpower. It's based on forming those habits and having those habits build upon themselves, like you mentioned. And that's just one thing that I never thought about that before, but like before I read this book, I just always assumed the harder you try, the more successful that you'll be, right? So people who have talent combined with hard work automatically make success. And you need talent, obviously, and you need hard work, but you need to have those habits, you need to have that focus, and the hard work pointed where it should be is how you can kind of build the steps to the next level, like you said, to where you can get, close that gap to where you can get to where, like you want to be. And like you mentioned, I'm not where I want to be. I haven't arrived, but I'm so much closer now even than I was a few weeks ago. And reading this book just kind of got me jazzed and amped up again to be like, okay, like I'm on the right track. What's my one thing? What's my one thing today? What's my one thing this week that I want to get done, essentially? And I've been able to focus so much more, and that's just something, I guess, kind of like the call on my life at the moment. It's just focus, cut out all the noise, stop saying yes to everything that just sounds good or everything that your friend tells you. Just value your one thing, the yes for your one thing. Just focus on that. And that's probably my biggest takeaway for this book. And it was awesome. And I'm so glad that you told me to read it, and I eventually actually took you up on it after I think you've told me about this a few years ago, and I was like, yeah, whatever. After I read Ready Player One, which I stole from our roommate and I had for about 2 years, that I finally finished, I read this book a lot faster than Ready Player One. But yeah, that's about it.
So go check out this book. I read it from the library the first time. If it's not at the library, go spend $10 to $10 bucks. There you go. Go spend a few dollars to change your, it's like the price of a pizza, and it can literally be the mental reset, the mental toolbox that helps get you a wannabe to actually getting the stuff done that you're dreamed about. So it's worth its weight in gold.
Definitely.
Just stop. Just go read it.
Read it.
It's really good. So
I'm the ultimate
thanks Gary Keller for writing this dope book.
It's an awesome book. I'm the ultimate put something off for later. I put off recommendations all the time. Please don't do that. This book is really awesome. We're not sponsored by the book by any means. We're not sponsored by anyone. Yeah. Gary, if you want to sponsor, I'm just kidding.
Gary Keller, listening.
But no, I'm just really passionate Gary, about the book.
Just a little shout. Can I give a shout out to Gary quick?
Go for it.
Gary Keller, I know you're probably listening to this podcast. Definitely, even. Old buddy, if you can do me a favor, just for me, Matt, and also Jake, go leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. Yes, you can subscribe to our show. It would mean the world to me. And then you can go find how to do that at 6starsonly.com. Gary, thank you.
Yeah.
You always come through. First the book that you wrote for me, and now this 5-star review.
5-star review.
I appreciate it. If anyone else would like to follow in Gary's footsteps, feel free to. Go for it. No pressure. But that would be amazing. It would make my month.
We value all of your feedback, and we'll also have the show notes at 6starsonly.com. Yeah, I think that's about it. So read this book.
Word
please. Changed my life. So I think that's about it. See you guys see you guys because we're on video. I always forget we're on video. It's not just a podcast. We release the videos as well. But that's it.
Where can people find us on the video? Where can they find the videos of the show? And where can they follow you, Jacob Arnn?
Follow me on Twitter at Jake Arnott. And I also have Instagram, which is also Jake Arnott. 6 Stars Only is our YouTube channel. We post videos every week. We try to. And 6starsonly.com, which we have the show notes. And we post the videos as well, don't we? Don't we, Matt? On 6 Stars Only?
Yeah, just go check us out on YouTube. Search for 6 Stars Only. You can find a link to the website. And then you can find my stuff at mattwoods.io. Check it out.
Check it out, guys. Awesome.
Cool. We out of here?
We out. I think that's it.